Hello, this is the Scarlet and Rage podcast. Welcome today. Those of you that may be watching here momentarily, and those of you that will be jumping on as the feed goes. I know there is always a lag between the live feed and when it actually shows up on the YouTube. So I know there will be those jumping on. As you get on, go ahead and just start getting in the chats. We're certainly going to try to get to a few more of the chats tonight. I think we might have a little bit more of a relaxed evening. So we look forward to interacting with you guys. We also have a lot to talk about as, the Buckeye coaching staff is completely blowing up. Defensive coordinator, we really didn't see coming. Offensive line coach, I definitely didn't see coming. And an offensive coordinator that I kind of, heard the rumblings, but I just thought that he would stay put for another year. I thought that the benefits of being at Ohio State and making $3.1 million, not having a whole lot of, not having a tremendous pressure next year, he just gets to make $3.1 million and call the offense again. And I thought that would outweigh the desire to get back in the NFL because he just hasn't had success in the NFL. But evidently not. Evidently Chip's decided he wants to take another stab at the NFL as an offensive coordinator. I guess he figures his stock's never going to be higher coming off of a national championship. And so he made, I guess, what he felt was an upward move. But it certainly was something that I was hoping and kind of felt like might not happen. What are your thoughts on all these moves? Well, I know we're going to get to the thoughts, but before that, how's your week been since we last convened here on the Scarlet and Rage podcast?
Great question, Michael. I would say that life is great. Honestly, I feel like I am living, and this is so odd for Rage to be in this kind of like mode, right? But Rage is, man, I feel like I'm just living the best days of my life right now. I'm not even going to lie to you, man. I've been so happy. My work life is happy. My family life is happy. We are national champions. It's like, I just love to walk around as a national champion, man. I'm not going to let Ohio State basketball bring me down, losing to Illinois today in a very demoralizing fashion. I'm not going to talk about that today, Michael. It feels great. It feels great to walk like a national champion, to talk like a national champion, hold my head up high, take care of your kids like a national champion, have sex like a national champion. Life just feels good. It just feels so good. And I have I don't really have complaints about life.
I mean, all valid points. I've just had a whole lot going on. Honestly.
Michael, do you want to delve into anything outside of like the real personal stuff? Anything?
No, we'll just say that there are moves taking place in my household, and those moves are taking place very soon. And so, a lot going on. Started with a new company, not a new career, same field, but new company. So I've had all that going on as well. And so it's been just extremely busy time, but good to be back here talking about this national championship Buckeye team. Thank you, those of you in the chat, SSLS, WTF, the entire damn staff. Caroline, good evening, gents. Good evening, Caroline. Unbelievable the Chip left so soon by Buckeye 1870. I don't think we should panic, Slip and Skippy says, because this usually happens whenever a team wins a major championship. Yes, I mean, certainly this kind of thing does happen. And that's what we're going to talk about. Is this a real cause for concern going into next year? We all could certainly have flashbacks of the 2014 national championship, where probably some poor decisions were definitely made when some coordinators left, and it potentially cost the 2015 team a national championship. Now, is this team able to even compete for national championship next year? That's a separate question. This isn't a loaded team that was just won it last year. This is a team that lost a lot from last year's season. So all those things factor into the equation, but it's always a major impact. There's no way to get around that when you lose an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, not to mention another integral piece like offensive line coach. So that's 3 major spots that just opened up for the Buckeyes.
It really did. And before I get into my initial thoughts on all of that, I see something Skippy in here talked about $200 worth of national championship gear. Yeah, I think I've spent a lot more than that on national championship gear so far. I think I've spent probably like $600 worth of national championship gear so far. I have bought like the portrait already, like for the shot on the field. I bought like a memorabilia football. I got the actual like, authentic jersey, not like that somebody wore, but the actual like 2025 like emblem with the white jerseys with the scarlet and gray stripe. And then I made sure I got copies of the Columbus Dispatch. I made sure I got that. And what else did I get? I got some clothes and some other random things. But yeah, it's been a lot. But you know what? It's worth it. It's worth it because it's, not only, I got hoodies. I was at the freaking game, so that actually makes it more memorable. It might be the only national championship game I ever attended my entire life. So definitely capitalizing there. Wardrobe makeover, game watching area makeover.
Just a little plug for the future series. I don't think it will be the only national championship. I think there will be other opportunities because I'm going to make the case this offseason why Ohio State is primed and ready for a mini dynasty.
I like it. You know what? Great. That's great, Michael. I love it. I love the optimism, man. But wow, what a turn of events, man. We went into this episode wanting to speak about 2 coaches gone, but now we have 3. Literally heard about Chip Kelly leaving, coming back from the gym in the afternoon. And I texted you, man, like, let's just start off right now with Chip Kelly. Let's just start off with the bombshell that is Chip Kelly leaving, because the all the inklings that we had was we believed that he was going to come back for a second season. But then there were rumors out there that the Texans were really going after him. Apparently somebody in the ethers of the internet world saw him arriving in Houston or something like that. But then we get news of the Las Vegas Raiders getting a hold of him, and it hurts. I'm not going to lie. Losing Chip Kelly really hurts. This is bad news. I'm just going to go off here. He is solely responsible for the blocking at all levels getting better. His power run gap schemes help propel us to a national championship. His entire reason for being here was for Ryan Day to have total trust in somebody else to be calling the plays while he managed the team as a CEO, and he only lasted 1 season. Yep. Now, I just read that the Las Vegas Raiders, and I just want to say it feels very weird to be calling them Las Vegas and not Oakland, have made him the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL. Very odd to be paying college coaches that much, but at least he does have some failed, and I say failed, NFL experience. So yeah, man, a lot to unpack there with Chip Kelly leaving. It sucks. No words, I guess there are words to describe it. It sucks, but like you mentioned, and some people in the chat have mentioned, when you win a national championship, people want your coaches. NFL people coming after our coaches, a little odd, but it happens.
Yeah. I was surprised that the NFL was still this confident in Chip Kelly, that they were going to make him an offer that was better than what he was getting at Ohio State. He hasn't succeeded in the NFL. He's been the exact opposite in the NFL. He's been a failure. Now, I don't know what they think is going to change this time around. I'd be interested to know what the Las Vegas Raiders think. I know Tom Brady, I think, is kind of involved with things out there in Las Vegas, or at least he's having some consulting role in some of these decisions. So I don't know. I don't know what they saw in Chip at this stage that made him think that he was going to have success this time. But evidently, the Ryan Day passing attack with the Chip Kelly running attack was compelling enough for the NFL to give him one more shot. Now, let me say this, Rage. I was really looking forward to him coming back because they just figured out how to gel this Ryan Day passing attack, what he wants to do, and the Chip Kelly running game, what he wants to do. They just figured that out at the end of the season. And I was looking forward to seeing that next year after they kind of had it under their feet, so to speak, had a handle on it, had success in it, knew how they wanted to do things and attack things, and see how that looked. Well, we're not going to see that anymore.
No, we're not, man. And I mean, this kind of goes without saying. Ryan Day, he's going to have to make a really good hire here, and he's going to have to make a hire for somebody that he trusts to hand over the complete reins to. Like, this can't be somebody that, is just a figurehead offensive coordinator, or, maybe schemes up the plays during the week, but Ryan Day is calling the plays on Saturday. That can't happen again. We saw what happened in 2023. And, I understand 2022 was like one of the best offenses in Ohio State history, but, Kevin Wilson was here. 2023, the Ohio State offense took a step back. So I guess, do you have any, this hit us so fast that I was not able to formulate a list. Do you have anyone off the top of your head that comes to mind about like replacements for Chip Kelly? Anyone?
Yeah, you just said it. Kevin Wilson comes to mind. I'm not saying there's not somebody better, but he comes to mind. He's available. He's been with the program. He's a run game guy. He's an offensive line run game guy. And I think that Day could tell him, look, I want you to look at the way we approach things as the season went along. I want you to look at Chip's running game and look and see how we begin to piece together the run versus the pass. And I want you to call games like this. This is how we want to attack, and he can have a hand in it because he's comfortable with Wilson. He should have a good relationship with Wilson as far as we know. I don't think that Wilson left on any bad terms. And so, Wilson's a very experienced guy. He's an older guy. He's a guy that Ryan Day should demand commit to 2 years if he was going to come in. Give it at least 2 years. I mean, Wilson's the kind of guy that should be there until you're ready to put him to pasture at this point. He tried the Tulsa thing. It didn't work. It's hard to build a program there, but he got fired. And to, be a offensive coordinator at Ohio State, making a couple of $1 million, that's probably about as good as it's going to get for Kevin Wilson at this point. So if he was a fit, he would be in a compelling, possible multiple year solution.
Yeah, I agree with that. I believe Kevin Wilson, actually, I know Kevin Wilson's son was actually still playing for Ohio State. I don't know if he was a walk-on or scholarship player. I know he was interviewed on the field post the Cotton Bowl. Mm-hmm. I guess that was damn near a month ago at this point, which is crazy how much time flies. But I know he was interviewed on the team. He was still out in his Buckeye gear and everything. I think if Ryan Day gave him a call, he would absolutely come back. The offenses were great under him. So, yeah, I would probably be on board with Kevin Wilson coming back. I don't remember how he was as a recruiter. I'm looking through a list of names right here, and it seems like universally at the college ranks, I'm not even going to look at the NFL because the NFL is just going to be so hard to procure somebody at that level to come to college.
I mean, if we could go to the NFL and have like maybe a dream pick, I might throw out something like Joe Brady. But I mean, he's not going to come from Buffalo,
right?
He's edging for a head coaching job in the NFL in the near future. He's not coming back to college as an OC. I think from realistic picks and picks that seem to make sense, that one is the one that most kind of jumps out to me.
Yeah, and another one that jumps out, I mean, not at the NFL ranks. I know Georgia had a lot of success with Todd Monken, but now he went to Baltimore and, he's doing well there. I know they choked in the playoffs, but, I guess you're limited when you have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. Will Stein is a name that I just looked up, and I don't know. Again, this hit us so fast. I don't know anything about this guy. I know Oregon had a great offense this past season, but, looking at Will Stein's background, he has no connection to the University of Oregon. He's actually, from a state down in Kentucky. Like, he was at Louisville. So maybe Ohio State could be like, hey, man, come back home. We'll pay you more money to just be, I know he played at Louisville. I don't know if he's from Kentucky, but, bring him back kind of close to home, maybe. He could be a name. I know he's a young guy. He's only like 36 years old, but at the same time, he's ranked really high, and he seems to be really universally accepted as one of the elite offensive coordinators out there. So, I don't really have a list, though. I've just been briefly looking at it in this past hour, so I haven't been able to really sit down and check it out, man. Yeah, and you have to look at Ryan Day connections too.
Yeah, it's what I sat down and looked at, and there's not a lot out there. He may have the capital at this stage, being a national championship coach, that he doesn't have to have a direct connection. He didn't have a direct connection to Jim Knowles. Of course, that was on the defensive side of the ball. But maybe he's at the point that he could pull somebody that doesn't have a direct connection to. But as far as being a good fit, I think Wilson's a good fit. We got a question here. Did Wilson get fired at Tulsa? Yes, he did. That was James W. who asked that. Slip and Skippy said, I did see Oregon's OC as our replacement. Okay. Will Stein. I don't know. I mean, I know he's thought of as being a really
We're going to get to all the coordinators. We're going to get to all the positions. This is what this show's about, so don't worry. Yeah, go on, Michael. What your thoughts are.
Well, he just kind of floated that there's been some rumors about Will Stein, Oregon's offensive coordinator, coming here. I haven't heard that yet. Of course, I haven't heard anything on it yet. All I know about Will Stein is he's real highly thought of.
Yeah, that's all I know. I don't know what kind of offense he runs. I mean, let's be real. Everyone runs a fucking spread. Who doesn't run the fucking spread?
Right.
I mean, Michigan even runs like the spread now. I mean, they run power spread, but they're still running the spread. Wisconsin runs the spread. I think Iowa maybe doesn't run the spread. I don't know. Who doesn't? It's not who runs the spread. Who doesn't run the fucking spread? Army, Navy?
Yeah. I mean, speaking of Michigan, I was looking at this new quarterback that they're getting. I think in 2 and 3 years, I think Michigan's going to be a force to be reckoned with again in the Big Ten with a quarterback like this kid. If they can, get a couple of receivers to come along, man, So just a thought. I was looking at him today, watching some of his film.
Talking about Bryce Underwood?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's the number one player in the country.
Yeah. And the first perfect recruit on ON3.
Yeah, actually, he's not the number one player in the country on the 247 composite. He's the number 2 player in the country. He's behind. Oh, so in the updated rankings, that is so weird. That is so weird here. So I'm looking at this is completely off topic, but Alabama's quarterback from Duncanville. Now, Duncanville's a powerhouse program. They have him ranked number 1. That is so weird. That is really weird. I don't know that I would take him over Bryce Underwood, but whatever, man. Whatever. Moving on a little bit because I feel like, we've kind of hit on offensive coordinator. It sucks. Jim Knowles.
Yeah, so you want to go DC next?
Let's go DC, and then we'll move on to position groups. So Jim Knowles' departure, man. There's been a lot of rumblings about Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson not getting along, and Jim Knowles not being able to run his defense the way he wants to, and this, that, and the other. I am really curious what changed defensively towards the end. Like, what made them play great in the playoffs, outside of really the Notre Dame game. Did Knowles run more of his defense? In my opinion, I'm going to be straight up with you, man. I'm not going to miss Jim Knowles. He wasn't aggressive enough for me. I've had a lot of complaints with him. He didn't draw a line in the sand enough for me against power run teams, except on the goal line. Got by at the end of the season with the defensive line playing out of their minds and not as much scheme. He was very fortunate that Jack and JT Tuimalau and Ty Lee could generate pressure just with like 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah.
And that was the difference. That was what elevated the defense. It wasn't really much of a schematic thing. It was just these fucking guys just going Super Saiyan 4 and playing like their hair is literally on fire as you are as a Super Saiyan.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, and by the time they got to the national championship game, Jack and JT were seemingly just about a half step off. It's like they were just a little more sluggish than they had been game 1 through 3. They still played well, but not quite with the same bounce and same bend off of the edge as they had the previous 3 games. And so, yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of this was player driven. It was a very talented defense. I know the whole thing with Jim Knowles is wait till year 3. That's what we were told from the beginning. Well, okay. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe it's just a coincidence.
I don't think so.
Maybe it's just a coincidence that year 3 happens to be when he had a totally loaded defense. Because the one thing about Jim Knowles is I feel positive about the guy, even though he's doing stupid stuff like wearing shirts at Penn State that say Ohio State sucks. Did you see that?
What?
You see that? Yeah, he had a hat. It was either a hat or a shirt. It was on Twitter. Or X, and it said Jim Knowles said it was a shirt that said Ohio, or a hat that said Ohio State sucks. Now,
when was this?
It was the other day.
He works at Penn State now, man. What are you gonna do?
Well, yeah. And again, I haven't verified 100% that wasn't somehow AI or something, that he actually did wear a hat like that. But it seems like most people were reporting kind of that was a legitimate picture. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of odd that he's taking digs like that early. That to me shows that he certainly has some issues with someone on the staff, whether it's Ryan Day, whether it's Larry Johnson or whoever. Okay, so James W. says he's heard the picture of Knowles was a fake. Okay, so possibly it was. So possibly he's not doing, maybe he's not doing that. But just the fact that you leave Ohio State to really take a slight step down to Penn State, I know you got more money, but from my understanding of it, he's not really going to net any more money because some of the additional money is going to go towards paying back the buyout that Penn State had to buy out. And so it's my understanding he's going to make about 2.8 at Penn State. He was going to make about 2.7 at Ohio State. Even though I think the contract is like 3.2 or something like that. But be that as it may, he took a step down. He took a step to a team that has not beaten Ohio State really much in the last 20 years. And maybe he thinks he's up for the challenge. Maybe he thinks he's the difference. Personally, I think Penn State's biggest problem is on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think Jim Knowles is going to do anything that some of these other creative defensive coordinators they have were not able to do.
Well, Jim Knowles is actually a Philadelphia guy. You can make there is an argument to be made out there that he's closer to home, but think about where he's located. I mean, so people I know have been to Happy Valley. They've been to Penn State. Penn State is out in the middle of fucking nowhere. Michael, have you been there? I have not been there.
No, I've never been there, but it's not a Terrell Pryor said he didn't go to Penn State because it was too country.
Yeah, he did say that. And it's just country as fuck out there.
Yeah, he said that's why I didn't go to Penn State. So yeah, it's just out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, geographically you're closer, but you're an hour plane trip away from Columbus to be in you're a 3-hour drive from Happy Valley, and not a pleasant drive.
Probably not.
None of it makes a whole lot of sense.
I don't know. Maybe if he likes to, maybe he's actually a country guy and just likes to go milk cows all day.
Maybe so. I mean,
I don't know. Maybe he just wants to have a farm and like feed chickens and I don't know,
well,
raise goats.
he the word is that there's friction between him and Ryan Day. Now, who knows? So the kind of the leaks by some of the other Buckeye podcasts that supposedly have some inside information say that Day, really let him have it after the Oregon game. Really ripped into him in a way that Day typically doesn't do, and that Jim Knowles really took exception to that and was kind of looking to get out somewhat from that point forward. Is that true? I don't know. I could see that being the case, because up until this playoff run, Jim Knowles' defense didn't get off the field in the fourth quarter of like any big game. His defenses did not ever get off the field. That was Jim Knowles' legacy up until those last 4 games. Because of those last 4 games, I will love Jim Knowles. Like, fine. I'm glad Jim Knowles was here. It ended up in a national championship, but he is one that I'm not. I think he was, unlike you, I think he was a good defensive coordinator. I don't think he was anything exceptional. And I think that there's, guys they can go out and find and not miss a whole lot, other than if they totally change the scheme again, because the defense does now really know Jim Knowles' scheme, most of the guys there. And if they have to learn something different, that is going to be a little bit of a challenge.
You made a good point, and I'm going to ask a follow-up question here. Actually, it's not really a question. It's me hypothesizing, but did Ryan Day falsely advertise this defensive coordinator position to Jim Knowles when he got hired? I don't know what the truth is, because we're hearing that Jim Knowles didn't have full autonomy to run his defense. And if that's the case, was that like explained to him when he first got hired on? Like, hey, you're not going to be able to run your full defense, but we're going to use principles with it. But, our defensive line, we're still going to use as is, but you can do whatever you want with like the back 7. And it's like, if you're not given full reins to do what you want to do, then why are you even taking this job? I mean, it's kind of problems on Ryan Day and Jim Knowles' end by either Ryan Day not explaining it or Jim Knowles not understanding what's in his fucking contract. I don't know. It seems like a massive miscommunication here.
One thing we do know is that in 2022, Jim Knowles' defense got burned playing cover 0 against Michigan. It got burned getting, ransom on an island with the track runner. And so how aggressive was he? I don't know. We'd have to go back and watch the 2022 season, but certainly in the big games, he put the defense in a position and the defense failed. The defense was unable to do it. And there was massively big plays that resulted from it. And it ultimately cost Ohio State a national championship. So in 2023, we saw a very bend but don't break style of defense. He was not putting guys on islands almost ever. It was the keep it in front kind of defense, make them earn it and work it down the field. And that defense, while improved in many ways, couldn't get off the field in the games that were needed. It didn't get off the field in that fourth quarter of the Michigan game. Michigan just drove it right down on them. So then we see this year much of the same. And then after the Nebraska game, we do see a bit of a change. We see a willingness to bring pressure that we hadn't seen in a while with Jim Knowles. Now, it wasn't extreme or it wasn't crazy, but he did start bringing pressure some. And you started to see more production in the Ohio State rush attack. We started getting more sacks. It started with the Indiana game. It was a little bit of an ebb and flow. Sometimes he didn't send a lot of pressure, but then the playoffs came and he was willing to send pressure, some, but like you said, our front 4 were getting a lot of pressure on their own, and it kind of solved that problem. And so that makes it really easy for a defensive coordinator when their front 4 are getting pressure.
Yes, it does. Yeah, man, a lot of questions, and I don't know that we're going to ever get like the full story unless you actually talk to Jim Knowles himself. I don't know that Ryan Day is ever going to be so candid about it. So that leads us into I feel like we talked about this enough already, but let's talk about some potential replacements for Jim Knowles. Now, I have some people here that I'm going to list off, and then I want to hear maybe your thoughts or if you have somebody else. But there are rumblings out there that Randy Bates, former Ohio State alum and Pittsburgh Panthers, not Pittsburgh Steelers, I want to make it clear, Pittsburgh Panthers defensive coordinator, is supposedly the front runner, but who knows? Now, I will say this, his teams create a lot of havoc, but overall, their defense is actually pretty bad. You also have to understand that Pat Narduzzi is their head coach. So it always lends the question about whose defense is it and who's calling the plays. I personally don't like hiring assistant coaches whose head coaches also have a background on the same side of the football. If I'm not mistaken, Pittsburgh Panthers rank 81st in total defense. Now, some Ohio State fans have said, oh, well, with Ohio State's athletes, that will be elevated and things will be fine. Maybe. Ohio State loses a lot of talent off of this defense. And, while our backups have played a lot and they are talented, I don't believe, especially along the defensive line, they're not as talented. And at the same time, man, I literally just lost my thought. What are your thoughts on Randy Bates?
What has he done?
Regain my thoughts.
What has he done over his career there? 2018 through the present. So he's got a decent amount of history. Has he had any good seasons there in Pittsburgh? I mean, I haven't looked.
I haven't looked that deeply. Okay. I haven't looked that deeply. Oh, I know what I was going to say. They ranked 81st. People are going to say with Ohio State level players, you can be better. But, he had ACC level players against a bad. Let's not mistake ourselves. The ACC is god fucking awful. They're lucky that they still exist. Florida State and Clemson have fought like hell to get out of there, and they failed. They're not going anywhere. They basically got some new TV deal where Clemson and Florida State are getting a little bit more money, but the fact of the matter is they're stuck in a conference that doesn't back them. Their conference gets blown out on the biggest of stages. Pittsburgh ranked 81st in total defense against that shitty conference. So remember that.
Jay, this is how far the ACC has fallen. That mighty Clemson, who was thought of as maybe starting to rival Alabama to take over as the leading program in the country at one point, not that long ago. Their coach is now groveling at the end of the season that the playoffs can't just be the Big Ten and SEC invitational. He knows how the conference is looked at. It's looked at as terrible because it is terrible. So, I want to do some more looking.
The ACC has got to prove something in the non-conference before I would feel comfortable ever. None of them got a first-round bye, and neither one of their two best teams hosted a playoff game, which is good. They didn't deserve it.
Well, yeah, and so it's a terrible conference, and so I don't feel amazing that he had an 80th ranked defense in the ACC.
No, I don't, because you have to remember the ACC still sucks.
I'd like to look and see how he did some of his other years. Maybe there's some more positives in there than, maybe this year was just a really down year. I don't know, but that certainly doesn't, breed a lot of confidence. And of course, he had a long stint as a linebacker coach at Northwestern. So that is some experience in the Big Ten, but not really at anywhere that would let us know if he's going to be able to be an Ohio State caliber coach.
Yeah, no, and to add on, man, it's just, we don't know that if the defense is Narduzzi's or his, and I just don't feel comfortable enough. And we just don't know if Narduzzi is calling the defensive plays either. Answering Slip and Skippy's question, will any of you attend this spring game in April? No, I will not. The spring games are fucking boring now. They used to be a fun thing to go to, like when Jim Tressel was coach, because they actually had live hitting and it was an actual game, but that's no longer the case, and there's just no reason to attend a spring game, much less pay money. Like you'd have to pay me to go to Ohio State spring game nowadays.
I might go to the spring game if I can get down on the field.
How would you get down on the field?
Well, one of the players might take me and my son down on the field. It would be a group of other, younger players too, but we might be able to get down on the field.
Jalen Marshall, like former player?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. So,
I get that. I would do that.
Yeah. So that would be cool. But other than that, if he's not doing that again this year, then no, I don't want to go.
Man, another name that, Ohio State could go the self-promote route, which I would be highly uncomfortable with. I would even take Randy Bates over this person. But Matt Guerrieri, safeties coach, he did bad in Indiana. I know he called plays in Indiana, but he did really bad. He basically has followed Knowles everywhere. For continuity purposes, people are kind of beating the drum for him. But for somebody so green and so young, I would just be completely uncomfortable with that. I'm just not on board with that. I'm not on board for promoting him. This is Ohio State. You go out and get the best there is, not promoting from within. This is how we got in the mess of being so underwhelming in big games the last couple of years.
Yeah. Why is, continuity so important with such a young defense? I mean, I do think continuity needs to be taken into play going forward. I don't think you want to go after a guy that's only going to be here 1 or 2 years. I think you do want to go after a guy that's going to be here hopefully 3 to 5. But, you've got a young defense. I don't feel like Matt Guerrieri is ready. There's nothing in his resume that would say he's ready. We would have never go outside and get Matt Guerrieri with his resume. I mean, let's say that there's a guy who'd been a co-DC at Indiana and Duke few years, 4 years, maybe something like that. And then he went 1 year and was the safeties coach at Alabama. Well, we wouldn't want to hire that guy as the DC. We'd say, well, let him prove himself more at Alabama, but, let him prove he can be a DC at a major school. So, no, I don't think his resume is enough. And I don't think the continuity argument is compelling enough to settle for a guy that he's also said, Jay, not to be a good recruiter. So you don't want a young guy as your DC who's not a good recruiter. That's my opinion.
Who says he's not a good? I mean, like that's pretty damning if a 35-year-old can't be a fucking good recruiter.
Well, it's been mentioned on most of the Ohio State podcast in recent weeks that he is not considered to be a strong recruiter and that he's not considered to connect well with the young kids. And it's not like he's a Jim Knowles older guy that like young kids can just kind of dismiss. Well, he's 60 something years old. This guy's just 34, 35 years old. So, when he can't connect with the guys, it's just, it doesn't seem like the guy you want running the show on the defense.
I've mentioned a name to you, and I've mentioned this name quite often, but nobody else is mentioning this name. And I don't understand for the sake of me. I don't understand why nobody. I know you know who it is, but I don't understand why nobody ever mentions this guy. In my opinion, he's the best defensive coordinator in the nation. Ohio born, Boardman, Ohio guy. Why in the fuck do we never, ever hear DJ Durkin's name to take over as defensive coordinator at Ohio State? Why in the fuck? What is Ohio State's disenchantment with this guy? Because he had a player die in a workout? All the man has done since is get big-time SEC defensive coordinator jobs and do very well. Well, they seem to be okay with hiring him back. So obviously they must have found that he really wasn't guilty or had that much to do with said player dying. In my opinion, Michael, he would be the ultimate package as a recruiter, a play caller, and a leader. He's been a head coach as well. Bring him home. He's the best out there, and he is actually much better than Jim Knowles. I just looked it up. He runs the 4-2-5. Why in the fuck is this guy's name never being thrown out there? It is disgusting. It is despicable. Now I'm starting to get pissed off because I've been happy rage for a while. But this is the shit that pisses me off. We have a guy who could come in tomorrow and get this defense fucking ready on top of being an ace recruiter. But we don't fucking do it. Why in the fuck are we not going after this guy? I never fucking hear his fucking name.
No, it doesn't seem like he's ever on the radar. He's been the DC at Florida. He's been the DC at Michigan. He's been the DC. He's been the head coach at Maryland. He's been the DC at Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Auburn. And so, I mean, he's certainly got a resume. He's got a lot of experience. I believe that he's a guy that could do a lot with the talent that they have at Ohio State. And so, yeah, I certainly think he would be somebody that would be on my list, much higher on my list than.
Man, I would give him a blank check and be like, come home.
Yeah.
That would be it. Be like, hey, listen, Ryan Day's got some gravitas now. Ryan Day, make a call down to Texas A&M and be like, hey, here's your check.
Yep.
Come home. Come home. We know you want to, but this is a guy who's just bounced around from SEC program to SEC program. And it just means more down there, man. They don't give a fuck. They want to win.
Yeah. So, I certainly would be in favor of taking a look at that, but it doesn't look like they're going to. So I'll be interested to see what candidates seem to pop up as this process goes on.
Man, that would be just an absolute grand slam, A+ hire, and that's why it's just not going to happen. I think it won't even happen in my wildest dreams, man.
Last but not least.
Well, hold on. I have one more name I want to throw out there.
Okay.
Former national championship defensive coordinator, and I heard this name from another podcast. How about Pete Golding? Do you remember Pete Golding?
No.
Okay, Pete Golding is the current Ole Miss defensive coordinator, and he was at Alabama under Saban for quite a while. The reason I bring his name up, I heard it somewhere else, but I always thought he ran the 3-4 at Alabama, but he actually runs like a 4-3, 4-2-5, which fits Ohio State's personnel. So I would be all aboard bringing Pete Golding up to Ohio State. The problem is these SEC defensive coordinators are these Southern boys. They never go north. I don't know. There needs to be we need to do some kind of psychoanalysis on why SEC coaches, like real Southern boys, they don't go north. Northern coaches go south. But the Southern boys, they never go north. What Southern boys like down in the Southeast that have straight SEC ties ever go north? I don't know of any.
I mean, the closest would be Dan Lanning, in that he didn't really go north, but he did go into the Big Ten. And I think he even has ties in Missouri, and I don't really consider that, heavily SEC country. I think that's where he's from, is Missouri. But
it's Missouri. So in my opinion, that doesn't count. I understand, but they're more like Central America, not like, I'm talking like maybe not even like Florida, because Florida is such a different mixed bag. But I'm talking about like Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina, like Will Muschamp. He's never coached up north, ever.
I think it's a cultural thing. I mean, Southerners, generally speaking, feel that the South is the best place to be, and that the North is not as good. I mean, that's the general vibe that most like true Southerners from those states have, and so maybe that just kind of plays into their coaching decisions as well. They just want to stay around home. They want to stay in that region that they're comfortable with, whereas Midwesterners are comfortable migrating all over the country and do Northeast, Southeast, Northwest, Southwest. And so they're all over the country. SEC region is just less likely to be that way. Same thing with their students. Their students are more likely to stay within the region than they are to leave the region. Man,
these Southerners are so myopic, man. No wonder like the North won the Civil War. And we won 5-1 against the SEC and have the last two national champions. So fuck the Southeast. But regardless, I would like to talk to some, Southeast coach sometime and just be like, dude, why the fuck do you never go north? Because I believe the Big Ten, for the most part, pays coaches more money than the SEC does. At least the big time programs do.
Yeah, they are now. Yeah, I mean that has changed in recent years, but yeah, they are now. Real quick before we move on to Justin Fry, the offensive line change. Slip and Skippy says Jeff Halfley. Yeah, I mean that I wouldn't
Oh,
be.
fuck that. I am not a Jeff Hafley fan. Not at all.
Yeah,
Not at all. Jeff Hafley, I'm just gonna. I'm not trying to interrupt you, but Jeff Hafley's defense was too soft. Yeah, he had a little bit more press coverage on the outside. And I thought the secondary was coached well, but the front seven just didn't come through in the last couple games. He didn't really do anything to offset Chase Young being shut down and try and generate pressure in other ways. He just wasn't aggressive enough for me. And let's not forget it was his defense that gave up the lead against Clemson in the most clutch of scenarios. He didn't come close to stopping them. I don't care what he did all year in 2019 against a really bad Big Ten team filled with a bunch of fourth and fifth year players on that 2019 Ohio State team. I do not like Jeff Hafley. I said that I thought he was overrated. Chase Young was just brilliant that year. And then the defense started to drop when teams started blocking him. When teams started blocking Chase Young is when the defense started having more of a poor performance. Like Hafley could not adjust. So no, did not like him. I didn't like that whole like single high safety thing. I didn't like it. Michael, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, my thought was just going to be I wouldn't be like totally shut down to examining that, but it certainly wasn't something that I was sold on. And I do agree with several of your points there. There's nothing about him that made me think that he was really a great DC. He had a lot of good talent, and then, they didn't get it done that year. And they were capable of beating that Clemson team. They probably should have beat that Clemson team. I don't know if they were capable of beating LSU that year, but they were better than that Clemson team, I believe. And yeah, they didn't get it done. So
think about how bad he did at Boston College too. He was terrible. He was very close to getting fired, and then the Packers somehow hired him away. How did he do in Green Bay? Do we even know?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how he did in Green Bay, but yeah. Anyhow, that's enough. We'll
go
see
ahead with Justin Fry, man. I feel like you've been really waiting for this one, so I'll let you start.
Because this one I'm excited about. This one was like, yes, this is a blessing. The Bears take Justin Fry off of our hands. Ryan Day isn't in a position where he has to fire his best friend. He's gone. And it's a beautiful thing because I don't think Justin Fry is that great anyway. I know that we won a national championship with Justin Fry. I'm not convinced that we didn't win it in spite of him because the offensive line never got to a point under Fry where they could just line up and block you. If the defense knew it was coming, we always had to, kind of divert and, open up the run game really through passing the ball. We just weren't able to line up and run the ball when we wanted to. And so I never saw great offensive lines out of Justin Fry's teams. His recruiting was terrible. He's part of the reason why the offensive line was such a big question mark this year because his recruiting's been so bad. There's a reason why the only question mark going into this season was the offensive line because his recruiting's been so bad. He has made some nice lands in the portals that have worked out. He gets a lot of credit for developing those guys, even though most of those guys' development took place before they got to Justin Fry. I mean, the center this year just lost his name, Jay. Who our center this year?
Seth McLaughlin.
Yeah, Seth McLaughlin. The vast majority of his development took place at Alabama. So I know that he leveled up, but he's a fifth year guy. Fifth year guys sometimes tend to do that. They really figure it out then. So I don't know.
And they try and give him credit for like developing Paris Johnson. Paris Johnson was already a fucking first round pick. What are we talking about?
Yeah. I mean, he was there for 1 year, right? Wasn't he there for 1 year with Johnson?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he didn't develop Johnson. So Justin Fry was the good fortune of a lot of things at Ohio State coming around him. And he was one of the weak spots in my view. So I'm glad he's gone. I think there's better options that they have out there. There's a lot of options here. We certainly can't detail all of those options tonight. I'm going to throw out kind of my kind of a fan favorite here. This is what this would make me happy. I don't know if it's the best thing. It's probably not going to happen, but I think LaCharles Bentley could be a good offensive line coach here at Ohio State. he was offered his services to Justin Fry over the offseason. He was turned down. And we know that Ryan Day apparently called LaCharles Bentley before the playoffs and had him come down to work with Justin Fry and the offensive line. So did Justin Fry get the offensive line firing and, figured out, right before when he hadn't been able to do it all season? Or, was LaCharles Bentley influential in that? I don't know. I don't want to give Bentley too much credit, but the whole picture around Justin Fry is very muddy at Ohio State. It's really hard to see, did he really do much good at all? Is he really a high-value coach at all? Or is he just kind of the beneficiary of a lot of good fortune with the things that stacked up and lined up around him?
Yeah, that's I'm just going to say, man, hallelujah, good riddance to that bitch. Awful coach, awful recruiter. Nobody will never, ever convince me he had a hand in the blocking getting better. I give all the credit in the world, and this is why I said he was such a big loss, to Chip Kelly. Once Chip Kelly arrived, the blocking just didn't get better at offensive line, but it got better across the board with the wide receivers and tight ends.
Yes.
Remember that now.
Yes.
Chip Kelly completely resurrected the line blocking. And with people and then on top of that, Justin Fry, just a god. He was maybe the worst position coach as a recruiter I have ever seen. Mm-hmm. Don't tell me about he's doing better in 2026 because these Ohio linemen have a lot of interest in Ohio State. Players from Ohio, in my opinion, don't fucking count. If you can't get the players in Ohio, then you shouldn't be an Ohio State coach. You should be able to just, have a couple conversations with them, and then they should be Buckeyes. That's how easy it is to recruit Ohio. Don't talk to me until you go into the Southeast and get the big, long, thick offensive linemen down there in the Southeast. That's who you got to get, the high-ranked ones.
Especially now, Jay. Now you can go to these Ohio kids if they're rated 95, 96, 97, 98, and, hey, come to Ohio State, and you put together a nice NIL package for them, and they've got even more incentive to come to Ohio State because Ohio State's very competitive in the NIL market. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be recruiting the Ohio kids. You're right. In this environment, that's not a big thing that, he should be getting those. And the only time he got a highly rated player was when that player was from Ohio. He never got even a remotely high rated out-of-state player.
They came close with David Sanders only because Ohio State's NIL was really good, and I believe Ryan Day was doing a great job recruiting him, but Tennessee in the end offered more, and David Sanders just wanted to stay a little closer to home. Tennessee, I didn't realize Knoxville was only 4 hours away from here in Charlotte when they played that kickoff game or whatever it was, or Duke's Mayo game back in September here in Charlotte when NC State and Tennessee played. I always thought, okay, NC State's kind of got home field advantage a little bit. And actually, I was wrong. I didn't realize that it was literally a neutral site game because Raleigh's I think just a little under 3 hours away, and Knoxville was 4 hours away. So it was a neutral site game. A lot of people are trying to say the NFL only hires the best coaches. Well, a lot of NFL teams suck. The Bears suck. I mean, just because you get hired in the NFL doesn't make it the right decision or yourself a good coach. I mean, you're just because, that's a weak ass fucking argument.
Yeah. Let me say this about the NFL coaching, Jay. The NFL has some of the greatest coaches in the world, but the NFL also has a lot of coaches that a lot of colleges wouldn't want. I mean, there's a lot of head coaches in the NFL. There's a lot of head coaches in the NFL that big time college coaches would not want as their head coach. There's position coaches in the NFL that colleges really wouldn't want just because the NFL takes a chance on somebody or somebody gets coaching in the NFL, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. The NFL does a lot of dumb things with coaches and players. They fall in love with players, based on combine and different things, and they draft them way too high. I mean, we see it all the time. And, they do the same thing in coaching. Guys get into coaching, they get opportunities. for whatever reason. And, they're not necessarily a big-time coach. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals, Zach Taylor. I mean, would you want him to replace Ryan Day if Ryan Day left tomorrow? No. His resume was awful before the Bengals hired him. It was nothing. He had no resume almost before the Bengals hired him. So the NFL does do a lot of things that they do a lot of crazy things in their personnel with their players and with some of the coaches that they hire.
Yeah, just just happy days here. Just happy days. So I know you made mention of LaCharles Bentley. I believe that would be risky. I believe he would be a great recruiter. I mean, how many black offensive line coaches are there? I mean, LaCharles Bentley is a former NFL guy. I think he won whatever the nation's top center award was in 2001 at Ohio State. But again, I understand. Here's the thing. He has a very lucrative business in Cleveland, Ohio, developing offensive linemen from all around the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And I know his technique is good, but, coming into a college program, how is his coaching going to be actually, with the schemes and everything, not just with technique. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's just a little risky there. I've heard one name being thrown out there, Eric Wolford at Kentucky. I'd never met him at Youngstown State. He is the former Youngstown State head coach, and he also coached at Alabama, had a lot of success there. But I can tell you this, man, my old Youngstown State teammates hated his fucking guts, hated him. One of my good friends, I don't know if he fought him or was about to fight him because he insulted his dad and said something about his dad being a bitch to his face. I don't know. I can just tell you that all of my former teammates fucking hated him. So there is that there. And then the last name I'll throw out there is Joe Rudolph at Notre Dame, former graduate assistant at Ohio State, or something along those lines. He got his start in coaching at Ohio State. He's a Big Ten guy. He's from Wisconsin. Supposedly he's one of the best offensive line coaches in the country at Notre Dame, but he's a Big Ten guy. He started at Ohio State. I'm not saying he's coming home to Ohio State, but I think if you give him a solid offer, I think you could get him. I think you could get him from Notre Dame.
Yeah, Joe Rudolph, that certainly would be a compelling case. One more that, I don't know that would be overly exciting, but it's just a name with a connection, is Joe Philbin. He was an analyst here with the offensive line. He may be needing a job. The Raiders, he's an interim offensive line coach for the Raiders and may not be retained as they're changing over their staff and kind of revamping things. So that was a name that has a connection to the Buckeye program. Ryan Day knows him, might be a possibility.
Man, just a lot of questions, man. A lot of questions, not a lot of answers right now. I don't know that we're ever going to know until the news hits that Ryan Day has just hired someone.
Yep. So we will be talking about it on the future episodes, along with some of the other content that we'll be getting into and covering. We'll be updating as things come along and discussing these hires, because we know we're going to have 3 major hires to take a look at here early in this offseason. So that's about all I got, Rach. How about you?
Last note I'm just going to say here is Ryan Day is a national champion now. Let's not forget about that. He is a national champion now.
Yeah.
He has gravitas now when walking into rooms with recruits and having conversations with coaches.
Yeah.
Michael, there is one thing that Ryan Day has now that he has not had in the past couple of seasons when it comes to procurement of new coaches. Do you know what that is?
A national championship?
That and leverage. Ryan Day has leverage now. He could be like, listen, we can pay you a lot of money and get you to wherever you want to go as a coach.
Yep.
And you will also win a national championship here, because look at this. Look at this fucking ring. I just won a national championship. Yeah. If I can win a championship with this guy, I can win a championship with you. So Ryan Day has that going for him. And, so I don't like that. I mean, obviously losing Chip Kelly was obviously the one that really hurt. But between all three coaches, Michael, they were all really bad recruiters who did not enjoy it. They were here to coach and nothing else. Two of them went to the NFL where you actually have downtime for a few months in the offseason. So with all of that said, it's possible Ryan Day could actually elevate the coaching staff here overall.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly is a massive loss, but overall, between the defensive coordinator, the offensive line coach, who, I thought the defensive coordinator was overrated. I think the offensive line coach fucking blew cock. It's possible this coaching staff could be elevated.
I agree with that optimistic spin there. I didn't see it coming from you there, Rage, but I agree with that this is an opportunity to elevate the coaching staff. This overall could turn into potentially a good thing by getting a better recruiter and a better personality as a DC, and a better recruiter and coach as an offensive line coach. And it's going to be hard to replace Chip, but you can get somebody certainly who would recruit better on that side, probably, because that was not his that wasn't his forte. But anyhow, good point there. I think that does.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in the chat really has anything profound. So I guess we're going to sign the fuck out of here, man. When do we want to go on again? Do we want to National Signing Day is on Wednesday. Do we want to have a Wednesday night show?
Yeah, that would work good.
Probably just break down the recruiting class, each player, what we think of them, kind of thing.
Yep.
All right. We'll plan on that. And then obviously we probably won't have a Sunday night show because of the Super Bowl. So we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah. All right.
All right, guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks for watching. See you soon.
See ya.